Greetings, flesh creatures. It is I, Megatron. On behalf of TFYLP, I want to congratulate you for listening to the most refined collective podcast on this miserable little planet Earth. Yes. Here you'll find knowledgeable fans discussing every aspect of Transformers and beyond. Now, enjoy the show while I continue my path to complete conquest of all of you miserable biological entities. Predacons, terrorize!
Hi, welcome to TFYLP episode 466. We are live tonight. It is Monday, January 24th. I am here tonight with apparently Phil went off camera. And Rick.
What, me?
Rick is broadcasting from his living room.
It's very cold in the vault tonight, so
I do appreciate it, Rick, that apparently tonight you have a headset, and so that's pretty fantastic.
Thank you. I've moved into the 1980s.
It sounds a lot better. And Peter.
Forever Destron.
And then we have a special guest, Matt.
Hey.
Who is also moving, apparently.
You can see all the boxes in the background.
That's a person's collection is not determined by how many glass cases they have or what figures they have, but by how many random boxes they have behind them.
Multiple sizes.
That's right. The amount of boxes and how many inches above their heads it goes, that determines a person's worth as far as their collecting ability.
Yeah, but you don't want it falling on you because I've had that happen before.
Oof. Yeah, that's not good. See, Peter will talk to you about that, like with the steel racks and the tubs and all that type of thing. See, that's you just got to up your box game.
Yeah, the tubs.
Live unboxing, right?
Well, welcome to the world of having just moved your collection, Matt. I've been in this house 7 years, and I still have never put a single car in my garage.
Wow,
it's a 4-car garage.
Well, we had an extra closet, like so. I have a lot of collection that is hidden away, and then the vintage stuff that I like to look at that I call my altar or whatever that I that I just like to look at in the morning. You get up in the morning, you see something, it's just like, oh, there it is. And like the really special pieces from the vintage stuff that I have. Some boxed, some, just loose. I'm not like crazy about having everything in the package, which is a fabulous thing. But I just, whatever. And I got what I got. And then there's just lots that I cycle in and out of like my different shelves that I have. Because, so I got a new RC. I got to get rid of that old RC. We put the new one in or whatever. It's always cycling. It's always changing. So that's where the boxes come in.
Yeah. So, but yeah, like Rick, you can just, So one question I have with that is do you display your collection like in your main living area and whatnot, or do you have like a room to the side where only certain people see it?
Who, me or Rick?
You. Well, we know Rick. Rick has his like
he has
basement.
His cave. For me, it's not in the main. No, we can't. That's too much. I don't think AJ would like it all the time if I had all that stuff out. And sometimes I don't want everyone to see it. Like I don't want it to be exposed to light. I want some of it, sort of protected. So, and then, when you bring people over, it's like, oh, and come into this room, come see this, and just people who don't even know anything about Transformers just love to see it,
Right.
It's just, and I can only imagine what it's like with Rick, like bringing them all in and
see, when you walk into my house, you can't tell there's anything wrong with me, right? So I love it when like a repair person comes over, or like the cable guy comes over, and I'm like, hey, you want to see something fucked up? And I open the basement door. I'm like, come here, come to the basement.
Oh, and they're like, no, please, sir, no.
And they just kind of like peer, and then they see the stairs, and like the stairs are just lying.
He's gonna kill me.
Like,
He's gonna kill me.
Looks like I've got candy down there.
He throws it down, locks the door.
Yeah. There's candy. Here's your tip. Yeah, go get it.
Yeah, I recently.
Of course,
had
now those people are locked in Rick's room with all those unopened toys, and Lord knows what happened there.
They had to eat them to survive. They had to eat them. Some of those old like Transformer candies from what was it, like 2005, 2006? Those
classics
bad
era
gummies.
Mm-hmm.
I've got Transformers the movie bags of Doritos and M&Ms and Hostess donuts, all still sealed in the basement.
See, now that's always so. What comes of that later?
I don't know. We haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah,
fungus,
yeah.
I think,
We haven't
or some sort of
gotten
bacteria.
there yet. Like everybody has, a Jazz cereal box, right? But nobody has a Jazz cereal box with cereal in it.
True,
right?
I guess. Yeah. Do you want the cereal?
I have neither.
I had those gummies that they put out that were like the Cybertron, transfer, like Optimus and
Megatron and like Classics Bumblebee.
Mm-hmm. And I don't know, I forgot about them, and then found them a couple years later, and it was just a sludge that was everywhere. And I said, I don't need the food. I don't need. Or there were also some ones that had like there was like the lollipop with the punching, and I got rid of that too because I just the character was cool, but the rest of it I didn't need.
I've got enough soda to feed like a small army. Just like when the Transformers movie came out, they put out every like Pepsi, Diet Pepsi,
but did you empty it?
Pepsi.
See, because I would empty it.
No.
See, I'm just waiting. Like Rick has a tub just full of like goo and like soda and all this.
I
Rick,
admire.
I had a Star Wars: The Phantom Menace Darth Maul can of Mountain Dew.
Oh yeah,
I was sitting in my parents' cupboard. And then like one day I like opened up the cupboard and the can was empty and all of the base of the cupboard cabinet was sticky. So it just like eroded through it over
ate the can.
Probably a decade.
That's
a
amazing.
decade plus. And that made a mess. So I believe, and I think we even talked about it on this, like maybe Nick brought it up, that you are supposed to puncture it slightly to let out the goo on the inside.
You have it stored over top of all your Gen 1 Japan stuff, right? You have all those cans of soda.
Right.
Can you imagine? Yeah. What's this? This is why my pretender monsters are sticky. This is the reason.
Yes.
Yeah.
There you go. So tonight's topic is not about storing 20-year-old food and whatnot. It's actually talking about the IDW comics. And we finally got official confirmation that the rumors were indeed true. And IDW is going to be losing the license for Transformers comics at the end of 2022.
Yeah, very sad. Very, very sad.
It has been really interesting. Like I did not see the news with a sad tone. I saw it with a kind of welcome tone.
Me too.
As a fan. But it has been interesting to see some of the creators who worked on the books putting out some relatively sorrowful social media posts that some of those guys got some pretty nice long-standing work, which as an artist, as a comic book artist, that's not easy to come by. And they got some names for themselves and some long-standing work from those books, and I'm sure writers as well. So this is not a happy moment for those folks who put in quite a few years and time and hours into those books.
And there's always the hope that some of them will carry over, even though it's not not at first, but maybe later on down the line. You look at Larry Hama and how he came back to G.I. Joe after IDW had it for a few years. And Simon Furman comes and goes to IDW for Transformers. So I think it's, just give it time. Let them get their, whoever the new licensee is, let them get their stuff together. And in time, they'll start bringing in, hopefully, other guys like James Robert and Casey Collar and Nick Roach.
Oh, yeah. And Alex is it Milne? I don't know how to pronounce it.
Milne?
Milne? Yeah, he's amazing. I mean, like, he just brings everything. It's just, they needed to cut the cord. I mean, this new iteration was not enjoyable, at least to me. It was like watching a slow train wreck, that you knew what the train wreck was going to look like at the end of the watching. There was no surprises. There's just nothing. So they need a fresh take, and it doesn't have the heart in it. You could just tell.
So here's the thing. I think at least three of us, Peter, Matt, myself, I think we're very passionate about the comic books, and we read them all. Phil, I don't know too much if you've been into them.
I don't know how to read.
Lucas is right. Yeah. So I want to ask Peter and Matt, thinking about IDW and where they're at now. Do you remember way back when in 2005 when they started?
Yes, and I wanted someone to have exactly that point made, because the last big reboot, not barring the 3 years ago one or 2 years ago one, when we moved from Dreamwave to IDW, the Asian series by Simon Furman and EJ Sue, while I enjoyed it at the time, it was a very slow start, and it took some time to get its feet under it and to get everything going. And it's just, I love Ratchet, so I was happy following the adventures of Ratchet and Verity. But it was a slow burn. And for those people who, I like the Dreamwave stuff, for the people who like the Dreamwave stuff that, was like epic and action-packed. Yeah, lots of stuff going on, new characters all the time, new slants on characters that we knew.
We had the War Within, which was revolutionary.
Mm-hmm. And then it just stopped. And then we started with, hey, it's Ratchet and Ironhide arguing with each other on Earth. It was a slow burn. It was a big tonal shift, and it caused some whiplash and some blowback for the creators.
I personally did not give the IDW Transformers books much rope at the beginning of it. I think I only read the first two issues and was like, this is not what I was enjoying from the Dreamwave. I get they want to do something different. It's like, oh, I get it. It's robots in disguise. They're really going to be, focusing on that. But it was sort of like the idea of some of the other Transformers media that we like versus some of the Transformers media that people don't like, which was like the Dreamwave books. Like, where were the humans? They weren't in there. It was the robots beating the snot out of each other that was the focal point of the story. And suddenly we get the IDW books with humans as the focal point at the start. And I was not really on board for that. And still, when there's a Transformer property that comes out, if the humans get more screen time than the robots, I in general don't enjoy it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. I what's funny about the initial IDW books, I guess why it's so disappointing with this new iteration, this new reboot, is we've already had however many 15 years of IDW doing amazing things with these characters, building out these worlds. Back when we first got IDW, I guess, we were really building off of Cartoon Universe, and we were starved for just something. You know what I mean? So back then, it seemed a lot better than it probably would compare to now. I don't know. I liked in the beginning of IDW that it started small, because sometimes you need to do that with, sort of starting over with everything. And I liked that there was fresh. There were new characters. It wasn't just Spike and, Sparkplug and everybody. but it built out really. I felt like it built out pretty quickly. You know, once they got past the first two Shuns, you know, it was already like a galactic war.
It escalated quickly, as you know. And second Shun was escalation. It went right up, and we trusted Furman, and he knew the property and he knew the characters, and he ran with it for better or for worse. There are people who aren't Furman fans, but I'm a Furman file.
I am too.
Yeah.
See, I love Simon, and I love what he's done with Transformers. But even if you talk to Simon, he'll say he definitely took some risks with some of the choices he made. So there were some points that stick out in my mind that just kind of turned me away from like reading it. So I would get it every week or every time they come out, I'd read it, or then I would put it down for like 2 weeks and go back to it. And one of the points that just made me like, was Blitzwing. How they killed off Blitzwing. I'm like, that's a very odd thing to do. They're just going to kill off Blitzwing. That's just very odd. I mean, you're starting off the comic books and you're just killing off Blitzwing. That seems like a weird thing to do. And then RC. I mean, we can't talk about IDW and Simon without talking about RC. And yes, it's been retconned and changed, and it was an interesting choice to try and introduce genders in that way in Transformers.
It was at the time. Look, I don't know. Yeah, it was no big deal. I mean, I don't know. I just thought, oh, he's doing something interesting. But you know, you look back, it's like, yeah, it's not real sensitive to people at all. It's not to women, to anything. But he was just trying to make. And I think he's argued it before. There was one writer, Scott, who did what was the one? What was that lousy comic that she wrote?
Till All Are One. She did the Windblade, and then Till All Are One.
She stunk.
Margaret Scott.
Margaret Scott. So she really called out Simon about that, and you know, he didn't mean anything bad. He was working within a property. They had characters. They were non-sexual, and look, he did the best he could. I don't think there was any evil intent. And I never really liked that she was so mean about, you know, calling him out about that. Yeah, the story was imperfect. Things change. And could have been handled better. Yeah, but it wasn't. And they're a bunch of robots from outer space. So chill out, you know? It was fun action. She was cooler than she ever was. And, you know, they ended up telling her story a lot better. Eventually. Retconning it, fixing it.
Yeah, we need to make a note, like just a quick housekeeping note before we get too far into the continuity of the Generation 1 IDW comics. We still have book club on Sunday nights, and they are just getting into Revolution and Lost Light and Optimus Prime. So no spoilers for those. Everything past Revolution, let's not get into that. We can breeze past it. But I don't want to spoil it for the people who are listening here.
If we say Optimus dies, that's not a spoiler, though.
It's Optimus Prime. He dies every other issue.
Yeah.
Heroically.
Revolution.
I was going to say, Book Club really focused on Phase 2. I think they went through Robots in Disguise and More Than Meets the Eye. And
right, and they're on Revolution now, and there are books past that, so let's not spoil anything past.
Right.
I think we kind of have to talk a little bit about what happened, you know, with the end of that iteration, with the end of the Lost Light / More Than Meets the Eye, and Robots in the Sky / Optimus Prime. Like, I don't think we have to go into the story detail, but you know, from a logistical standpoint, there was a lot of talk that they were going to be potentially losing the license then. Yeah. So they tried to go out with a bang, and it was decent. You know, but it definitely left me wanting more, and I didn't get more. I don't think I would have been unhappy. Like, so I'm a big comic book fan, and you know, when you look at Marvel and DC, DC has been on this relaunch, merry-go-round for the last, decade plus at this point in time.
Yeah, I
so
haven't felt like
sort of-
DC has been, together in, you're right, a decade.
Yeah.
It's a mess. And now it's all like multi-universes and I don't know what's where. And, Marvel, at least, they have a better handle on it.
But the thing with both those comic companies, for the most part, is that they will have a writer. The writer and artist team tell a series of stories, and then the writer either finishes their story or they want to bring in a new writer and they move on. They don't erase the universe and start fresh. Like Spider-Man doesn't get a brand new origin story every 10, 15 years. He gets new adventures with new creative teams, and I just don't understand what IDW was doing at that time, because they had done multiple iterations of, we're going to give you the same universe with new writing teams and new artist teams, and we might even contradict the living daylights out of ourselves, but you still had just things building upon it, and
that first universe too, like. That one, they rebooted it a couple of, soft reboot, a couple of times. I mean, even when Robots in Disguise and Lost Light,
More Than Meets the Eye
came along, that was even though that was the end of a cataclysmic battle, you kind of...
It was a fresh start.
It was a real fresh start. And I think they could have done that with what they did after Unicron, the Unicron series, because so many of those characters, they all had good stories. They were all going in interesting places, and they just said, that's it. And they didn't do nearly well. I guess we could start earlier on, but I just didn't. They had been doing those sort of multi-book stories early on. That Dark Cybertron series was excellent in the way that everything tied together, and they lost the ability to do that after that series for some reason, or I don't know.
One thing I will say as far as IDW in general is, John Barber was, editor of these for, years and years. And, it's a testament to him as far as being able to kind of connect all of those stories as well as what he did over the years, because it's incredibly difficult to do and, get all those.
The best.
That to mention.
I don't know if I'd say he's the best. There's plenty of editors at Marvel and DC and other companies that are tying together. And I'm not saying he's bad. I'm just saying
I agree.
He was managing 2 to 3 books at a time.
For Transformers, he's been the best, I guess.
Yeah.
He's been the best.
You're saying that John Barber was better than Chris Ryall. Am I hearing that right?
He was certainly better than Andy Schmidt.
I mean, Andy.
Andy
Schmidt. All right, so the editors were Andy Schmidt, Chris Ryall, and then John Barber. Andy Schmidt was there.
Ryall was first, then Schmidt, then Barber. Schmidt was there from.
No, it was Schmidt, Ryall, Barber. Yeah.
No.
Or was it Ryall, Schmidt, Ryall, then Barber?
Yes.
Right.
But Schmidt was there from.
Andy Schmidt left IDW to come work at Hasbro.
Yes. And he said in an interview he doesn't care about continuity anyway, and he didn't pay attention. He's like, when I worked at Marvel and DC, we didn't care about this stuff. And he was joking, sure, but at the same time, the quality of his work showed that he did not care. The way All Hail Optimus or All Hail Megatron, sorry, All Hail Megatron, and then the Costa series and all that junk that happened before Chaos and the Death of Optimus Prime, the dupe that started the 2 main books, Phase 2 or whatever. It was a nightmare, and Barber came in, and before he did the fixing of the G1 books and tying it all together and putting it all to, how it sort of made sense, he had already cut his teeth on Transformers with the movie comic books and tying the movies into that, and the profiles from the toys and just all the nonsense that the movie comic series was, and he made it all mostly fit up to the point that the movies were at that time. Another thing that I think should be noted regarding the initial IDW launch is that we didn't have a lot of Transformers media when IDW fired up their rockets in 2005. There was no movie series. We had 1 cartoon a year, and it was mediocre. And now here we are.
Classics was announced the year that they came out.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know Chris Ryall. I honestly I couldn't tell you his work. What did he do? Which were the ones he did?
He's done a ton of stuff. He was the editor in chief at IDW.
But what Transformer books was he in charge of that I would recognize? I just don't know. I'm just asking.
He was the editor, I believe, on the Asian series, and the initial spotlights.
Okay, well, those were good. Those were fun. Those are a good stepping off point. Is he as good as Barber was? No,
right.
Not to me. Because Barber had a great sense of humor. He knew how to tie it all together, and he cared. Like some of those guys, they didn't care. Like he cared that this character did this in the first comic, and he had to figure out a way to have that character somehow link up to the one that's at the at the point we're reading. And those like to me that I know I really appreciate it. And I have to say also I loved Barber like injected a sense of humor that was really fun. Like some of our characters that we love, like they muttered to themselves. Like I love that. Like I love that, that stuff. And I know that's the writing stuff, but there among all this, amazing, space opera, whatever, there's, everyday Joe, making reactions to things and laugh, they're funny. It made it fun.
I think the thing that's bringing me down about Barber is the G.I. Joe Transformers crossover.
Well,
because like every time I think about John Barber, I think about that story and that book and the way it was structured and drawn and
but Joe doesn't get the respect. Like they weren't making any money off of those books.
G.I. Joe was selling better than Transformers at one point.
I know, but then but by that time they weren't.
G.I. Joe lost me though. Like G.I. Joe was amazing. The whole Chuckles stuff, the with
Cobra Island stuff was fun.
Yeah, and who's Cobra Commander and
what's funny is that was written by Costa, who did a good job with Joe and then did a horrible job with his Transformers run. The ongoing Transformers run was just, for me, abysmal.
Oh, painful. And then that art that Figueroa did,
when Figueroa changed it up.
Horrible. Like, you guys remember that? I mean,
was that when like every character, every artist drew the characters they wanted to do, and there wasn't a continuity in art?
Yeah, there was a Bumblebee book concurrent with the ongoing book, and like the ongoing book, everyone looked like G1 but movie-fied. Yeah. And it was by Figueroa, who we knew could draw like dynamic Generation 1. Yeah. But over in the Bumblebee book, they were drawing it like this really rough. I'm trying to remember who did was it Chi? Who did the art on that one? But anyway, it was this like rough Gen 1 cartoon aesthetic. So nothing fit. And then you had like Silver Streak in one book and Blue Streak in another book. Like both the streaks were there because they botched the script and that was all Schmidt going, yeah, it's fine. Just everyone's
who cares?
There.
Yeah.
So Rick, when you were at Hasbro, did they have did you guys talk about the comics and whatnot? And was there a thought about, feedback and whatnot from, internally on how they were doing?
Oh, absolutely. We'd take meetings with them all the time. So every time there was a comic, Michael Kelly, who was licensing manager for publishing, would get the script. He would read it, give his notes. He would send it over to me. I'd read it. I'd give my notes. And then sometimes we would just get like a document like, hey, over the next 10 issues, we've got this planned. And then sometimes Chris and John Barber would come over to Hasbro and they would say, hey, this is what we want to do. Can we kill these guys off? This is where we want to take the story. Hey, here are some potential names for the story. And for the longest time, the Transformers brand kept saying, no, we're not going back to the Marvel comic books. We're not doing the Marvel comic books again. We're not picking up, because at that point, Larry Hama was already back on Real American Hero, and IDW just insisted on going back to Marvel. So one day they came over, and it was Chris Ryall, John Barber, and then on the other side it was Andy Schmidt, who was already working at Hasbro, Michael Kelly, and myself. And that's where we had the meeting where I'm like, all right, we're going to let you do Marvel, but it's going to be limited. It's just going to be 20 issues. You get to 100, and then it's done. Because for some reason, I just don't understand why Aaron just wanted it to be. He's like, we're not living in the past. We're moving forward. So, all right, you do 20 issues, you get to 100, it's done. And they're like, all right, we need a name for it. It's like, okay. So this is my one contribution to that book. We were working on renaming Chug Classics at the time, and I had pitched to the Transformers team, what about Regeneration 1? We're regenerating these guys from G1. They're like, I don't understand. We're not making G1. No, I know we're not making G1, but it's like, no, we're moving forward. No, I get it. We're not making, it's regeneration because these are G. Pitched it to Michael Kelly to pitch it to IDW. He didn't get it. So John Barber and Chris Ryall are there, and I'm like, hey, I pitched it to the toy team. I pitched it to Michael Kelly. Can I just throw out this name, Regeneration 1 to you? And they're like, we love it. That's it. That's the name. I'm like, finally, somebody gets the name.
This is your fault.
And
that was my one.
What did you think of that series? What did you think of this series? Did you think it was the right sort of ending?
Unnecessary.
Yeah.
Unnecessary is the way to describe it. Yeah.
I don't know what he was thinking. Like, it was so off the stories that we had gotten before. He was trying to be heavy, and that was another one where, you know, they let him mess around in different directions. I thought that was fun. I mean, you know, was it right? Did I like it? I didn't really love it, but I read it because I had to, you know. I think it went better when they had a better artist, when Guido Guidi got in on it and started doing his amazing retro style. Like, a lot of times, let's face it, some of these books are saved a little. If you got some good art, like there's a couple of those new, you know, the reboot books that Alex Milne has done, and they're just a bit better because he, you know, draws it, and you just want to be lost in his world, and you don't even need the words. You just want to look at everything. But it can't exist on just that.
I think one of the big difficulties with Transformers and G.I. Joe comic books in general is that, unlike the cartoons or the movies, you're creating these more so for the harder core fan base, and i.e. an older fan base. So there is where I think the Barber era books differed is that they broke the characters out of some of the same molds that they had been in for, at that point, decades. Where, you know, all right, you're going to have, you know, Sideswipe and Sunstreaker act a certain way, but, you know, you can give some nuances to their characters. Starscream absolutely had nuances to his character that we hadn't seen really before. And then they said, well, yeah, let's take Optimus and Megatron out of this. You know, just like the DC and Marvel have been doing this since the death of Superman, and even before that they've been doing it, where they take the main character out of the book. And guess what happens? You get to introduce side characters, and those side characters get to become fan favorite characters. And then guess what you get to do? You get to make a big story spectacular of bringing the main characters, the beloved characters, back into the story. But now you have all these other characters that have been fleshed out around them. And I think that, to me, is what the Barber era did best, is the two things, is making the characters more nuanced, more fleshed out, and to your guys' point, more humorous, as well as letting side characters take the spotlight and become fan favorite characters. I mean,
they became likable. They became relatable, you know, like More Than Meets the Eye became, you know, it was about robots from outer space, but it was just about people, screwed up people, all living together.
Yep.
And you know,
you turn into helicopters.
Yeah. That, you know, or there, yeah. And we fell in love with characters like Whirl, Swerve, Tailgate. Like, nobodies. And that's what I think that era Roberts was so great at. And it was funny, and it was exciting, and it was epic. It was all these things, but then they would go small, you know? He really got it. After a while, you could tell he was kind of running on fumes, and didn't feel as excited. You could tell that, you know, he was being rushed or whatever. There were times when he stretched out stories way too long. But he built some characters and built part of that world that now I don't think we could do without, like the Decepticon Justice Division. You know, I
Scavengers.
I love Rung. I thought he was such a fantastic character, and just all these other weirdos that he brought to life. But and was same with Barber. Barber did the same thing. He gave us personalities behind a little bit more fleshed out. Well, actually, no. He took what
Thundercracker.
Thundercracker was fabulous.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't. He was a nobody. I mean, he just was the Blue Jet.
Well, I think the amazing thing though with that is not only did it, you know, kind of speak to some of the hardcore fans that, you know, were looking for, you know, more you know, gray in the world and whatnot, but it also introduced a whole new fan base, you know, to Transformers fiction. And I think that that's something Hasbro is always trying to do, is reach out to new fans and whatnot. And so they're able to serve, you know, especially with More Than Meets the Eye and all that. But I mean, you see that at conventions and whatnot, is your traditional, you know, Transformers fan base was not exactly the same as that IDW fan base. And they were as hardcore, or they have been as hardcore as anybody else, you know, but it's been more with the fiction and whatnot, and not just, you know, the toys and whatnot.
And who would have thought, who would have thought that robots from outer space that turn into stuff would be inclusive, like, to all these other different diverse groups? And that was by accident. I think a lot of it was by accident, you know, but they found these characters and they go, well, what do we do? I mean, if they're all male, are they, you know, how they, one or two of them have got to fall for each other,
but they're just perceived as male. They're robots.
I know, but you know what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying. Like, it made people feel like, hey, you know, hey, I'm in there too, you know, and I thought that was that. I never needed that. Like, when I'm reading my comics, I just want a relatable character that's having fun and doing cool stuff that I'm excited about. But that was a cool extra bit that they really did.
It was cool for, I think, a couple things. And I think, you know, certainly the idea of gender got played with quite a bit and was really neat. But also just the idea of what does a relationship mean when you have entities that live for millions of years?
Yeah.
You know, what is, because there were the different levels of romantic love versus friendship love. And that was played around with it. And so you had a ton of cool concepts that were heavy science fiction, but told with a joke and a laugh at a bar where they're drinking gasoline for all intents and purposes.
No, there was just so much world building that was really incredibly interesting and weird. I mean, I guess a lot of it reminded me of God, what is that book? Arthur. It's a British book. Now I can't remember the name of it, but it had that British sense of humor. And the way that there was world building, that, you know, you ask one question and you get some huge answer that's very elaborate.
So long, and thanks for all the fish.
Yeah.
You
know which book series?
42.
Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Sorry. But you know, in that book, even just like one little aside, and there's some huge explanation that's ridiculous. And there was a lot of that in More Than Meets the Eye and in Robots in Disguise, and it was great because we're getting history that we never got. We're learning about. I think I was the most excited when we just learned, like, how are Transformers born? What's it mean to be like? Because there's so many different ways now. You know, I think and they explained it. I thought that was really cool.
So that's what I was talking to these guys before the show, that as a comic, as you know, I consume all the media, the movies, cartoons, toys, if the toys had bios, which they don't anymore. But the comics is where I think the truest form of the lore can exist, because that's where all these little things can. You can't get into this level of detail on a TV show unless it's Beast Wars. You can't get into like sharing your deepest energon core with somebody, or
Innermost.
your innermost energon. Thank you. You can't get into. What's great about the comics is you can take any character and go in any direction, and you don't need your top tier A or B or C characters. You can have a whole story about the Knights of Cybertron, a whole story about just Dinobots and that weird two-headed thing. It's stories about scavengers, right? And absolutely amazing that those random characters are put together.
They're all losers, but they win.
It's just absolutely just mesmerizing that those characters work together, and then they introduce Grimlock into the equation, and Grimlock he's just a perfect fit with those characters. You can never have a TV show like that, because a TV show always needs to have Optimus, always needs to have Megatron, Bumblebee, Starscream, and I guess Windblade now. But the comics allow for such a wider view of the brand and creates that brand building opportunity. And that's what's been lacking the last year and a half, 2 years, that I'm not excited to read the issue as soon as I get it. It just kind of sits there until.
Yeah, I mean, I read it. I think I hate read. I like it. I got
to write that down.
I think the reason why I do it, because I like to punch myself. I think I keep hoping that something's going to be better, but but what made the original, I think, much more interesting was we started really small, and then it started to build out. We started in the middle of the story, really. I mean, it's the current time, but they've been going for millions of years before, and who knows how long they're going to go in the future. And so it was in media race, and, we didn't know what was going on, and you're thrown in. And even though they're doing that in the new series, we know where this is going. They're going to go to Earth. They're going to do this. Optimus is going to get there. So is Mega. We know where this is going. And with the new one, there's no organization. They just throw a bunch of characters together. Some of them have the right personality, some don't. I don't know why part of the Protectobots are together, but then they're with the monster bots, and then none of it makes any freaking sense. And it's just a slow train crash. It is nothing, and we know the ending. It's boring.
It's the Amazing Spider-Man. They're redoing the whole Uncle Ben has to die. He has to give you the line. And that's why Tom Holland's Spider-Man was so great when he first showed up. They skip all that.
Yeah.
They skip the first movie and go right into him being Spider-Man. You're not bogged down with all that.
Yeah, we know Prime is going to get the Matrix. We know this. Megatron's going to take over and make the Decepticons. They made him a little differently, but they actually made them more boring. I don't know. They're senators. We got enough freaking senators we got to see in real life. I don't want to see them. And we got to see them in Star Wars. I don't want to see them in my Transformer comic. I want fun.
And it took 25 issues to get to the point where Pax becomes Prime. And Megatron's like, we're not Decepticons, we're Decepticons. Yay, surprise.
We'll turn it upside down.
Yeah.
No, we're bad guys.
But I don't know. I feel like with, at least the phase 2 and with some of the stuff that Roberts did, I don't mind hanging out in that world for a while as they build up and they just do stuff and it's a slow burn. Whereas in this new world, it just does not interest me for, whatever reason. Like you said, it's it's a boring storyline and it's a slow burn, but I don't know. I just don't want to hang out with those in that world.
You know what? It's a slow burn, and Roberts may have had slow burn stories, but it never felt slow because he's going like this, and you're slowly getting through Tarn. You want them to have the resolution with the Justice Division, the Decepticon Justice Division, but there's so much stuff, and he was so frenetic that you at least felt like you're getting more happening, and people were talking quickly, and I don't know. Like even the humor attempts in the new rebooted storyline they all fall flat.
Speaking of humor, have you guys read that new Wreck-gar's book? Whew, that thing is so good.
Are they trying to? Is there like something I'm missing?
Peter,
about
for those
this?
listening, can you explain your facial expression?
Uh,
That sums it up. That does sum it up.
Yeah.
It amazed me that it was one of the first books that Anna has been like, I like the new continuity more than you guys do, but man, this Wreck-gar's, I'm not so sure about that.
El Stinko. It's stupid. It's stupid. And it doesn't, it wasn't even well thought out. The characters, everything that they did is like, obviously you're going to do that. Like it wasn't even a good episode of Energon.
Ouch.
Those are bold words.
Yeah.
It looked beautiful. I love that artist,
Oh, yeah. Jack Lawrence. He's
Lawrence,
great.
amazing. What a waste that they used him on that, that stuff, because it was.
So, I was always wondering if there was like something I was missing about that Wreck-gar's book, like if at the end of the story, these guys just get killed, and the Wreck-gar show up, like we're here to be the Wreck-gars, but that's not where they're going with this.
It's just, I get that they're trying to make something different, but it's not a good thing. It's not good. It's bad. They rushed it, or I don't know what. Or it was a crappy story, and they go, let's stretch it out into 4 episodes, and let's tell it very slowly with a lot of action, because apparently we need lots of action. And it was just lame. And I'm sorry for the writers. No, I'm not. I'm not sorry. It's poor work. The artwork was amazing. And I feel like all the artists are saving, all the illustrators, the colorists, the inkers, they're saving the book. I think that the main writer that they have right now stinks. I don't think he understands the characters well. I don't know if he even likes them. This is my personal opinion, so you can all say I'm a terrible person, but this is my opinion, and it just it is every secret in the new storyline. We know it, so when it's finally revealed, who cares? We've known it for 10 episodes. It's just it's pointless.
Yeah. And so that's the thing is I feel like for me, a lot of this is it's just like this slow death or car crash, like you had mentioned, Matt, that I feel like it's like, at this point, I want, like, I feel like by making more content, it's almost making the, older content worse kind of thing, because it's like that bad taste in your mouth at the very end of stuff. And so I don't know, like I'm willing to let the IDW stuff, live in the past, and I'm personally excited for a new, whatever the new take may be, and who knows, maybe that one's not going to be great either. I certainly hope it is, but I guess we won't see for a while. But
well, I mean, I'm hoping personally for a relaunch, continuation, and satisfying conclusion to the Dreamwave arcs. I want to find out what's happening with that golden disc from the Micromasters line.
Oh, I need that.
And I need to know what's going on with Cyclonus and all the Scourges.
And those tiny heads on all those Micromasters.
Here's the thing, though. I asked IDW about that. I'm like, is there any interest on you guys? Like, yeah, we don't care about Marvel and going back to that, but is there any interest on like just kind of wrapping those stories up? And they're like, absolutely not. We that's a different company. We don't want to be involved with them. There was people who didn't get paid for work that was published, so we can't be involved with this.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I would love for that stuff to like be recapped in like the first couple pages of a new book. And it's like, last time, stuff, Micromaster Shockwave discs. Here's a story. But I don't think they'll be able to go back and go, oh, War Within number 6 and 7 and
4, 5, and 6 were missing.
Yeah.
I don't think.
But
there
at this
is
point, do we care?
enough demand for that? That's the thing is.
They could read the comic. They could have a new character or something in the new book, like reading like this doesn't. What's the next issue? There is no next issue. What do you mean there's no next issue? Oh, it's over.
This is terrible.
Yeah, and then they just throw it away, and it's just a copy of whatever the Brad Mick book issue 10.
I think if they do their own thing, maybe it'll be something that people clamor for eventually. I would just love for them to care about the characters. To care. That's I think you have to really care about who they are. You can change them. I don't care if is Optimus start off a psychopath and then becomes nice. Who knows? I mean, do something to make me like them and care. Make me care. But I want to see that you care first. And I just don't. There is a soullessness to this current storyline. And it has interesting, like, sort of, I like some of the society things that they're doing and sort of retelling. It's sort of cool, but not real. I don't know. It just, and it doesn't have a sense of humor. It was just, the old one was so ridiculous. I loved that. Like,
It was irreverent. It was, and it knew when to be silly and it knew when to be, just like, haha, we're having our yucks. And it knew when to be deadly serious. This one is just monotone. Mm-hmm. Like you mentioned earlier, Matt, they'll try really hard to make a joke. Someone over at Swindles will try really hard to make a joke. And it's just like, oh, they've made a joke.
Hi, I'm Flame War. I don't like you. You're mean. And yeah.
It's like when you watch the... if you go on YouTube and watch the clips of the Big Bang Theory without the laugh track, it's like, oh, without someone laughing in the background, that this is not actually funny. I do think that the media that we've seen, like, it's so interesting because Cyberverse, I felt like, really captured some of that irreverent spirit. But the current IDW books, from what I've read, really seem to sync up tonally with the Netflix series.
Oh yeah,
where it's just drawn out long and you're rehashing, the story of the Cybertronian War so much. It's like I feel like Hasbro just picks up on the creative teams of these pick up on the wrong cues that we're giving off. It's like, oh man, people love that scene in Bumblebee where they were on Cybertron and fighting. Let's do that for like 30 episodes and 25 issues of a comic book.
And let's have Optimus talk very slowly.
And what's so weird about that is that's the same Optimus from Cyberverse. It's the same actor.
Yeah. But he's so great. He's so
he's
funny.
Great he's great on Cyberverse, but the direction on War for Cybertron was just slow it down about 400% and make it gritty. As gritty as you can.
The first season of Cyberverse, they were really feeling out what they were doing. That second one, like, they got it, like they understood it. And I didn't, I thought at first, I don't know what this thing was going to be. It was great. It is the true, predecessor, it is the next version of G1. Like, it is the fun current, that storyline. It was fun. Like, it could have fun and still tell these epic stories. I think we saw more epic stories in Cyberverse than we saw in the Netflix series, quite frankly. I mean, it was incredible.
So Zaldron asked something, and I don't think this was the case, but certainly they used the designs. Was the IDW book supposed to be tied into the Netflix show in some way, shape, or form?
Yeah.
Or was it just that they took the exact designs from all the toys at the time? They all just, copied the exact designs for everyone.
It was supposed to be. It was a continuation. It was like the prequel, right? That's what I thought. I was under the impression it was under this. It was the same world. It was the same universe. But that, maybe they changed it. That's the way it started, I think.
I just thought it was the mandate that they have to look like the toys.
But I think that created confusion as to, like, you have two things that look identical, but yet the story was close, but not quite there. And
yeah,
I don't know.
I think it was kind of like the Star Wars comics they're doing now with, like, Star Wars other media and movies, where they were dancing around the main event, like the main event being the Netflix, and then, we can do all this other stuff over here. And I feel like they had hands off of everything that happened in Netflix so that they could, they're messing around and doing other stuff. At least I was under the impression that they were the same universe. Could have changed.
So speaking of universes, the while it's not official, the heavily rumored new publisher of the Transformers comics is supposed to be Skybound, Robert Kirkman's comic company. Right out of the gate, one of the things that's exciting about that and ties into why possibly we don't have any more IDW books is Kirkman and Skybound got some deep pockets. And supposedly that's why we weren't getting some better IDW stories, is because they were getting a little tight on the pocketbook. They had some creators that they wanted to bring on, supposedly, and couldn't afford those creators. And again, maybe we're getting writers who are not the cream of the crop because they're not getting paid that much. This is the IDW Transformers books seem like to be like the Pittsburgh Pirates of baseball right now, where they're like, yeah, we're intentionally keeping a low payroll because we've got some other issues that we're dealing with. But Kirkman and Skybound, that is not the case. Skybound is I think a good term because these books can really take off in terms of the creators they can bring on, the budgets they can use. So that, from that aspect, I'm super excited about. And obviously the guy who's worked on Invincible and The Walking Dead, which is two of the biggest properties come out of the comic book world, since Spider-Man, that you can get some really cool stories from a guy like that, and the team he's going to hopefully bring on.
We need something fresh. Fan.
Yeah. So one day, this was like 8-9 years ago, Aaron walks into my office. He's like, hey, I just had lunch with Robert Kirkman. I'm like, the Walking Dead guy? He's like, yeah, he's here. I'm like, oh, that's weird. Why is he here? Are we going to do Walking Dead figures now? He's like, no. We're going to try and buy Invincible. I'm like, oh, wow. What? It's like, and so Andy Schmidt's here. He's next to me. He's like, isn't that like super violent? But apparently the people who are in charge of identifying brands that they wanted to buy didn't know that. So they had Kirkman come out, give a whole presentation. They're like, yeah, we're interested in buying Invincible from you. And then they saw what it was, and they're like, oh, no, we can't have that. One day, Seth Green he's a huge G.I. Joe fan. He comes in and he's like, he actually comes and like hangs out with like the crew. He's like, yeah, I was just meeting with the higher ups. We want to do a Trouser Snake figure because Mattel had, they had done the Molar. And so Hasbro had to strike back. And then we were like, yeah, Trousers. We want Trouser Snake. Comic-Con exclusives, Trouser Snake. And Fumbles. And then he's like, and then I showed them the clip.
Fumbles.
I showed them the clip, and that was kind of the end of the meeting.
Oh God, I'm dying. All right, for those listeners who aren't aware, this is a robot chicken bit that is just amazing. I've got a quick story tying into that when we have a second here, Rick. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, so Hasbro has been, I guess, tried to have an open line with Kirkman. So I guess maybe that was like the start of, hey, let's stay in touch. Let's see what we can do. And so now it's come to fruition that Skybound's going to be putting out Transformer comics.
Allegedly.
Yeah, again, that's the heavy rumor. And what we're hearing is that IDW has got the books through the end of this year, 2022. And that anything coming new from Skybound wouldn't be till 2023. And who knows if we'll even get solicitations of issues, before IDW is able to wrap everything up. I mean, I love the comic book Invincible. I love what that book did and what Kirkman did on that book in terms of seeding storylines 20, 30 issues ahead. And but he kept telling action-packed stories while seeding longer-term things. I think it was a great job. Now, one thing I will say I am not familiar with is the other Skybound books that are out there right now that he doesn't personally write. And so I don't know if the quality of those is as strong as what he himself has done. Is he personally the goose that laid the golden egg and whatnot? I don't know. But again, the encouraging thing to me, even if it's not working on some of these books, is that he's got enough of a very, very large Rolodex and a very, very large bank account to write checks from.
Yeah. And he's got style. Like, he knows, like, you see something and it's like, that look is different. It's fresh. Like those books always, they have their own look about them. And hopefully we'll get to see, great artists in there doing different things. No, I'm excited just about a different perspective. I think, IDW kind of lost their mojo. And look, it's fine. They told amazing stories. And quite frankly, I think that they were the ones responsible for the Transformers golden age of comics. I know that, everyone wants to look back at the Marvel years, but to me, the golden age was really, am I frozen? The golden age was really like 10 years ago when they were doing their thing with Roberts and Barber. Like, there was just so much stuff coming out, and it was really exciting. So they have a lot to be proud of.
Yeah, absolutely.
I wouldn't be surprised if IDW just kind of wraps things up by April. Like, if they just kind of rush things and just say,
They do an issue 80 on us. It's like, and then it ended, and Prime came back.
Right.
And yay.
Right. It's
and
just
Pucci went to his home planet, and he was never seen from again.
Exactly. Like, it's just like a quick wrap up and says, "To be continued?" ?
I mean, they do have the opportunity to really, wrap up these stories properly if they want to. The question is whether or not they will.
Yeah.
But do the fans care at this point, knowing that it's coming to an end?
No.
Dude, does it matter how the story ends? Like,
no.
They can do anything now, I guess. I mean, Hasbro still has to approve it, but I mean, who cares anymore?
This one, it just doesn't have the. Yeah, I'm not. I mean, I'll read it. Like I said, I'll read it. I don't hate it. It's fine. It's just not up to the usual. Maybe they'll do something interesting. I don't know. Maybe.
What they're going to do is an Armada, where they cross over with G1 and Ramjet, Galvatron. Who are the other two?
It was Dirge, Bludgeon, Galvatron, and
Scourge.
Repugnus, probably.
No.
Will show up.
I thought it was like another no.
Bludgeon. Yeah, Bludgeon, Dirge, Galvatron.
You're missing
Scourge.
Wasn't Ramjet?
It was Scourge.
Oh, Scourge.
I think. It was so random.
Yeah.
All of that stuff
they're
was
going to
random.
show up from the IDW verse. They'll show up.
What if they show up in the
Ramjet's head.
Dreamwave-verse?
And they're gonna do a No Way Home on us. They're gonna bring everybody together,
And they're all gonna.
and that's what's gonna get us to make it. It's gonna be Revolution, but like multiverse.
Oh, I've got one. They can bring everyone back in Unicron's belly and they can call it the Cauldron. And then they can sell exclusive covers at BotCon, you guys.
All right. I can't wait to buy them.
Woo! I did it.
Matt, you're not going to be a guest at BotCon, are you?
Huh?
Be a guest, right?
Why would I be?
Okay.
No, no one wants to see me. But I think I am going to the TFCon in LA though. I want to go see that because I think every voice actor is here.
Everyone's going to be there.
Yeah, and not every
guest list.
They're going to be announcing people until like 2 weeks after the show ends. They'll still be announcing people.
I couldn't believe that. I was like, everybody, who?
Yeah.
All these people.
Well, that's the great thing about doing it in LA, though, is that most everyone lives there. And
Yeah,
so
they'll wheel out the old actors.
Right.
Right.
And they're all
Next
there.
week, Casey Kasem's Ghost.
I know. I swear I thought I saw his wife, his ex-wife, whatever, his widow, recently when I was driving around. I was like, is that her? No, she's too young. There are always sightings out here.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, I think they should be IDW should be very proud of what they've done. And so the ending isn't so great, what they're doing now, but we still love our Transformer comics, and we, even though it's hard to read it, as long as they don't do any more of these crossovers with, Pony. Pony I don't mind so much, but like the other weird ones,
Visionaries,
Terminator.
I don't know.
Ghostbusters.
I liked
Terminator wasn't bad
personally. I actually thought Terminator was pretty good. My kid enjoyed the Pony Transformers.
I thought that was cute.
He read them. Yeah, I mean, for a kid, it was a good story. So
there were some of them that I did, like the Grimlock one. That's sort of like Dungeon and Dragon Grimlock. I'm kind of like, And
Back to the Future.
Oh yeah, I wasn't real into that one either. But they're there.
They're weird things
they
we
sold
never thought we'd
issues
see.
and they made the company some cash.
Yeah. It got attention.
One thing that is weird about the IDW verse is that Avengers crossover is canon in IDW, but it's not in Avengers. Like if you look at the collected works when you get those big hardcover books, it's like there's a chapter missing, and it goes, "Remember that time we fought with Spider-Man?" And you're like, wait.
Isn't that the same thing? Don't they do that with the old Marvel when Spidey was
Issue 3
with Gears?
Yeah.
Black out a lot of that stuff.
Well, they did that with Circuit Breaker too for a while.
Oh yeah.
They were like, and then they met a human, and she was mean to them. Moving on. Hey, BlackRock's here.
Totally wasn't Circuit Breaker.
Yeah.
She
wasn't almost naked except for metal over her body parts. Juvenile me had some new feelings with Circuit Breaker that I did not quite know what those were, but I liked them.
It's a good look.
So I'm going to throw out a final question. Does the new iteration of Transformers need to start with the tier A and B characters?
No.
Mm-mm.
You need someone familiar as your audience surrogate. Oh, I know that guy. That's Blue Streaker or whoever.
Probably like a Starscream, right?
Someone you can trust.
Most likely a Bumblebee, right?
But Bumblebee, you can tell a good Bumblebee story if you approach it in the right way. As long as he can talk. And it isn't too people heavy. There's interesting stuff you can do with them. I'm curious to see what they do. I would love to see a new take on it. I mean, it gets boring see that same thing over and over and over again. So
right. I'm not sure I want Bumblebee to be the protagonist for the story. It just feels like that's every story nowadays is it's the Bumblebee story.
He's our gateway transformer
for good reason. I mean, it sells, but
yeah.
I honestly don't know what we're gonna get, because you're gonna have in 2023 the new movie. At some point in the next year and a half, we're going to have, I believe, rumors of a legacy cartoon. Mm-hmm. So what we get from Skybound might not be really brand new original material. It might be cartoon or movie tie-ins at first. I don't know what we're going to get out of the gate, and maybe we'll get is Skybound is a comic that spins off of the movie.
I think whatever they launch with has to be like impactful. So they may launch with like a TV show tie-in and a movie tie-in, but I think they have to launch like that first issue you get needs to make an impact, needs to set their universe up for success, their universe.
Yeah.
I think that's what we're going to get, because everyone's going to look at that first issue and say, this is the future of Transformers, good or bad. And then you got your, movie and your TV show tie-in on the sides.
I think eventually we'll get a Skybound Transformers universe, but I guess part of me is setting the expectations for myself is that it might not be right out of the gate.
Yeah. Set them low. Set those expectations low.
Not necessarily low, but just saying like when you have a property like this and there's media coming out, guess what are some of the first marching orders? Yeah. Give us connections to the big media.
Mm-hmm. I think that if he cares enough about these brands, I think there could be some really interesting things coming. And I agree. They definitely, they'll have media tie-in stuff, because that's how you make your extra money. That's how you get younger readers into things, whatever. Right. But it'll just be nice to have some new, fresh takes on things, different artists, different. But I gotta tell you, I want more Marvel story stuff. I want some more Simon eventually. Those recent Marvel sort of in between comics I thought were great and fun, and he was back where he works best. Like it was back in that sort of that world. I like that. I would love more of that.
You know what I'm longing for? Reanimated. Regeneration 1 reanimated. Either continuing animated in comic form, or launching a new version of Transformers animated. Because there's certain characters that Lockdown, that version of Prowl, Yoketron, Sumdak Tower, the Headmaster, like those are characters I want to see.
That version of Sentinel. Yeah, there was a lot of good stuff.
Yeah.
Throughout all the seasons, it kept coming, and it was all fresh and fun.
And I think that could sell. I mean, because I think a lot of people really love those comics. I think one of the mistakes that IDW took when they did Beast Wars, which is another abysmal comic. Sorry. And I like some of the artists that do it. I like what's the name of the artist that's doing the main? He's the main one. Isn't it? Bertram. I like Bertram doing certain things. I don't think he's best for this comic, but if it was a more fun, lighthearted one, I think he would be great for it. But here you have this Beast Wars, this whole Beast Wars fandom. You have the videos, you have everything. Why the hell didn't you tie it into that? You've already got that story. Build off of that story. I know we've gotten stories off of it, but tell a new one off of all this stuff.
What's crazy? Until that story came out, every single Beast Wars story that was ever told, from Dreamwave, IDW, or the BotCon comics, all existed in the same continuity as the show. Every single comic existed in the same continuity as the show.
Did Dreamwave?
Because that show so.
They did a one-shot special. And they were going to do a full book, but they did a one-shot special. I think it was called the Summer
Rat
Special.
Trap.
2005.
Okay.
It was
wow.
With RID and.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
An RID one, an Energon one, and a Beast Force one. There were three stories in one book, and you got to vote.
Yeah, but you don't need to stay in continuity because it's too hard to do that. But like, it would have been fun to know some of the stories in between some of those Beast Wars stories, the episodes. I think that could have been a fun way of bringing back those characters. The way that they did it was so boring, and so those comics, even those comics stink. Who cares about those? I mean,
all right. Let me ask you this: Shattered Glass comics, yes or no?
The new ones?
No.
Well,
I think they're boring.
If they're good.
Oh, I don't need any more Shattered Glass. I'm done with it.
I could deal with Shattered Glass if it was like a proper invasion story, like when when universes are crashing together, right? Like that's what we need, a No Way Home event. I'm telling you, that's what we need in comic books and Transformers right now. A No Way Home event where you have like Star Convoy and RID Optimus and Animated Optimus and like G1 Prime and Convoy, right? And he only speaks in Japanese. And it's like nobody can understand him because he only speaks Japanese. Like
we come from another planet. We only speak English.
Like Toshi on American Dad. But that's what we need. We need a huge crossover with all the different iterations of the brand.
Crisis on Infinite Cybertrons.
It's Kirkman, so we're going to get zombies. We're going to get zombie Transformers at some point.
Yeah, we'll get that stuff. That'll be fun.
Yeah.
Hopefully they're better than the Infestation story.
Ooh.
Although the only good thing about that story, I think, was Cup, and how, I mean, that Infestation only exists to make Cup a cooler character in my eyes.
Yeah, I barely remember that story. It was just such a footnote. It was just weird. I don't know, that trying to tie in all these other things. Like, I know we can't talk about what was it? What was the one with G.I. Joe?
Revolution.
Yeah, Revolution.
Oh.
Yeah, no, Infestation was before that, though.
Yeah, but that Infestation was with Star Trek and G.I. Joe.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Ghostbusters, right?
Yeah, it was G.I. Joe, Ghostbusters, Star Trek, Ninja Turtles.
Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, I was going to say Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
I don't know. There was so much good. I think that IDW, they experimented a lot. And I think that's what we need to let our stories. I think they're played out at this point. That whether it's the budget there, or the things going down. I don't know anything about it, but I know my editor on one of my books used to work there, and he's like, I cut and ran. They did so many different things. They tried on all these different stories and different hats. So they get the prize, definitely, for, I think, elevating Transformer comics to an unbelievable new level. I'm spoiled, and I want them to always be at that level. And we're just not there right now. So we got to wait a little bit. We'll see what's coming up. Oh, and I'm open to things being different, because I think that's the one thing about Transformers is they constantly are changing. They transform. The name. But I like that it can change. It should change. We should. And sometimes it's uncomfortable. Look, we all didn't. Oh, look at animated. That looks like. Oh, that's terrible. And Beast Wars. I can't believe it. Truck Not Monkey. All this stuff. It's important that we allow it to change and be open to it.
What we really need is a what if Transformers comic. A what if ongoing series.
That'd be fun.
Of Transformer comics.
And the great thing about that is that you allow different creators to come on, you allow different artists and writers to have a take on it, and cool cut stuff can come out of that. And hey, guess what? All of a sudden you got some character or storyline that takes off. It's like, we're making this one an ongoing here, folks.
Swerve is the leader of the Autobots.
Exactly.
Swerve is Prime. And it works.
So let me ask you guys a question along those lines of what you just said about Swerve. While we all are okay with seeing change, are there things that are now set in stone based upon the IDW universe that you don't want to see change? Swerve being one that I would point to and say, like, no, that is Swerve from now on.
Trailbreaker being a drunk?
I don't want to ruin Lost Light for anybody, but I like Rung the way he is in that series. I like that. I like the others that he is related to. I love that origin of things. I love that. But it wouldn't be a surprise. You know? I don't think I gave anything away.
It wouldn't be, but you could still have that character exist sort of.
Yeah. In some iteration.
Yeah.
It was a good character.
Yeah, and I just love the others that were in that group of characters related to him. That I love that explanation for why they existed, and I love that. I thought that was so fun. I would love to see that again somehow in some other way, but then it wouldn't be a surprise anymore. I don't know if I need. I guess Optimus has to be red and blue. I think that's important.
I mean, I wouldn't mind having, Roberts come back for a Lost Light, a million years later, whatever kind of thing.
No, leave it alone. Don't go Matrix 4. Leave it alone. Leave it alone. The Lost Light had a great ending. They went off in space and had adventures, and they had 2 captains, and don't go Matrix 4 on it. All right?
I guess my point was more of maybe not continuing the stories, but again, the idea of when you have a new writer come on a comic book, Spider-Man is still Spider-Man in terms of his personality. Did IDW cement some of these characters' personalities?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Like Megatron. I love that Megatron was a poet and that he was this tortured character. When he became, I don't know, he got so interesting. I loved him more than Optimus. They gave him so much depth that I want my Megatron to be a poet. Like I love that you understood his transformation much more. So I guess that's what I would want. Like there were some really cool things that they did with some of the main characters.
It's crazy to think that I really enjoyed seeing Megatron as an Autobot. Like it's insane. I kept waiting for
when that cover came out,
kept waiting.
What?
Yeah.
And they never turned him. I mean, spoiler. I mean, the book came out, 4 years ago, whatever. But if you haven't seen No Way Home by now,
they did a lot of good things that I wouldn't want to. I love the way they made Prowl, that he is now Mr. Prickly. And I love that. They fleshed out some characters in such good ways that you don't want them to change.
I love Six Shot and the whole idea of like a Phase 6 type of warrior class of guys that just get like Black Shadow. Like I would have loved to see, what was the Black Shadow story? When he was a Phase 6 and we never got to see that. I want to see more Knights of Cybertron and Diatlas and Roadfire. I want to see those.
how Glitch became Tarn.
Yeah, it was a great. There were so many characters that they really fleshed out in interesting ways that were different, and now I can't see them any other way. I don't
Skids.
want my world any other way.
Right, Skids.
Skids.
Skids, and I mean Sunstreaker had such a crazy arc in that story. It's hard for me to think of Sunstreaker as any other way than being a tortured headmaster, to being a traitor, to being in a wheelchair, to having Bob with him.
Really wanted that Bob toy.
Yeah.
He's going to be a red Build-A-Figure 2 years from now, but he's going to be this big. It's going to take 4 waves.
You got to buy 6 Titan figures to get one little piece.
Yeah, you sure? He's going to be one of those Super 7 figures that's going to be this big and weigh about 20 pounds.
Oh my God, scary. Super 7! If they did a Sunstreaker that came with Bob, that would be fun.
What? I from your mouth to their ears, like.
Yeah, there
that's what we need.
So I think my final outlook on. Sorry, Lucas. I think my final outlook on IDW was, sort of like the idea of a professional sports team coach / general manager tenure. They didn't win at first. They had a rocky start, and then they had a few seasons that were like, you are winning championships, you are in the playoffs, and then you just sort of faded. But you were too good for a long period of time for us to just kick you to the curb. But you're no pun intended. You are past your prime at this moment.
But you will always be legend. But you will always be legend.
You have those championship seasons. You have those banners, those rings to say like, damn, you did some good stuff back then.
That's an Andy Reid right there. If I ever.
Definitely.
Andy Reid's doing pretty well nowadays. Just FYI.
Yeah, I don't think he's faded.
I mean, I'm an Eagles fan. You know, I was there in Philly when he was the Eagles coach. So you know,
he got a second win.
Yeah, I was gonna say, unlike IDW, he got a second win. So.
Yeah. He discovered the life-giving powers of Kansas City barbecue.
Hey, TFCon just announced a bunch more guests.
There you go.
Are you serious?
Well, thank you guys for joining us tonight. It's been a fun discussion. Thanks also to everyone in the chat. Thanks to Zaldron. Thanks to FVG. Thanks to Catherine. Thanks to all the Russian bots. Thanks to Daniel earlier. Thanks to Ron. Illmatic Prime earlier as well. If I forgot anyone.
The North Korean bots?
Yes, all the bots. Yes, I did a shout out to them. So.
And the throttle bots. They were out there. Somewhere.
Throttle bots.
Not Searchlight.
So, but there we go. And then also there was a cut the tape last week, so you can check that out. And then we should have a microcasters coming up this week as well. But thanks again, guys, and we will see you next week.
Thanks, everyone.
Good evening.
Bye. Thank you.